Hello everybody and welcome to part 4 of What If Superboy Was in My Hero Academia. This series that combines the DC and MHA universe through the protagonist that is John Kent, Superboy, as he goes parallel to the adventures of Midoriya. I do hope you all enjoy this series, and if you do, please hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, or check out the Discord. I know this isn't the most well-liked series, but I'm going to keep going on it until at least my initial plans are over, because it's important to what I'm working on. That said, I hope you all enjoy the video. Villains attacked. They got past the security of UA High and managed to attack the students of Class 1A during a rescue training exercise. They went to kill All Might, but he wasn't there. While the present teachers fought off the villains and kept them busy, one of the students, Wallace West, managed to escape from the facility and called for help. The teachers of UA mustered their forces together and rushed to aid the students. Once they got there, the leaders behind the attack escaped, but most of their forces were subsequently neutralized. In order to let the students recover from the ordeal and to start the investigation, all students of UA were given a day off. Most of the students of Class 1A took the time to relax and recover, not doing anything too out of the ordinary. After the police finished their investigation on campus, they put a report together to inform the staff of what happened and who had done it, in order for them to better increase security in the facility and maybe receive extra information from the parties involved. Nezu, All Might, Aizawa, Vlad King, Snipe, Midnight, and Nightwing were all invited to the meeting on the UA's side, while only Tsukauchi attended from a police standpoint. Having most of the information on the subject, and having dispensed with the formalities, Tsukauchi stepped in front of all the faculty members, grabbed his clipboard full of notes, and started informing the staff on what they had found out so far. Our investigators are trying to learn all they can of this so-called League of Villains. We've made some progress, but we can't find anything on the Shigaraki so far. We've searched our records for men in their 20s or 30s that were registered as having some sort of disintegration quirk, but so far we've come out empty. Same for the Warp Gate villain Kuroyiri. So they're not citizens or they're using aliases. Hard to find either way, Tsukauchi said. So what you're really saying is we don't know anything? Vlad King asked impatiently. If this could happen to Class 1A, it could happen to any other class in the school. That included his. His number one priority had to be his students' safety. We gotta track them down. The leader got away without a scratch. What's stopping them from attacking again? Sniped asked, concerned. These villains had broken into the school once. They could do it again. All their students could be in danger. We've got more than nothing on them, Nightwing said, stepping up and walking in front of everyone to stand next to Tsukauchi. Confident in himself and his research, he continued. On the request of the principal, I've been investigating the situation of my own accord, ever since the break-in the other day. What does the break-in have to do with the attack at the USJ? Midnight asked, confused as to the relation between the two events. A lot, actually. The quirk used to break through our defenses matches the description of the Shigaraki fellow. Nightwing explained. He cleared his throat and continued with his explanation. Anyway, after the break-in I searched the scene. There was a slight problem though. Too many people go by the school entrance every day, and on this particular day, there were hundreds of reporters and other members of the press there. I still combed the area and collected all the DNA samples I could find. There were too many to be able to identify the culprits, but I still had a friend pass them through our family's database. After cross-referencing all DNA samples, we found only one sample that didn't belong to any member of the press, resident in a nearby area, or student or teacher, anyone who would be in this area normally. Couldn't it have just been a random fanboy that was in the area to see if he could get a glimpse of All Might? Midnight asked, trying to rule out that possibility. That's unlikely, Nightwing answered. The DNA sample we found had no matches in any database I checked, even the quirk registry. But the only way that would happen is if they didn't receive their quirk registration, Midnight mentioned. In other words, it's a dead end, Aizawa added, wanting to move the conversation along to a point where more useful information was given. This meeting was such an illogical waste of time. Not exactly. After the attack of the USJ, I managed to confirm that the DNA sample I got from the break-in matched Shigaraki's, so it's the same person, Nightwing explained, being pretty proud of himself, even though it wasn't much information so far, or something that could have easily been stitched together in theory. He had concrete proof, at least, of who broke into the school. Still, he hadn't gotten to the good parts yet. How does that help us? Sniped interrupted to ask. He saw little point in talking so long to present so little. We're still at square one. We don't know if that's his actual name or just some sort of alias. We can't really stop them from trying something like this again either. What's stopping them from doing so? Nothing. And they definitely will at some point, Nightwing said. The likelihood of another attack on UA, given the League of Villains' objective, was almost guaranteed. He cleared his throat again and resumed his explanation once more. Now if you stop interrupting, I can get to the important parts of my investigation. During the USJ, I got DNA samples of a couple of the different villains we fought. I ignored the samples of the villains we have in custody, so it only left me with the samples of 3 villains. The strange thing is, I got multiple DNA samples from just those 3 people, which likely suggests human experimentation. As I said before, on the public database I found no matches for Shigaraki. It had me troubled, so I looked through my mentor's stuff and found some analog files that included a DNA database. Just to be sure, I compared Shigaraki's DNA to the database and found a partial match. Nana Shimura. Hearing that name, All Might's eyes widened. He tried to remain calm, but couldn't keep his surprise and worry contained. What was the relation that the villain had to his teacher? The news shocked him to his core. He had no idea how to react properly. What should he do? What should he say? How could a relative of the symbol of peace's master have gone down such a path? Is everything alright, All Might? Nezu asked, worried about the look on his co-worker's face. I'm fine. Please continue, he said, trying not to stop the conversation while himself still dwelling on the reveal. Who even is this person? Aizawa asked. He had never heard that name before. She was an old hero that operated before All Might. It was about 50 years ago, I think? Nightwing answered, recalling his own teacher explaining a couple things about her. I tracked the family line with what I could find, which was pretty hard for me to do. Her kid was placed for adoption and adopted by another family. Records were pretty hard to come by. Not only that, there was also an incident a couple years ago, an incident that resulted in the whole family's death. Most files on the situation are missing, so someone tried to cover them up, but I found a file that Bruce was keeping. According to the report, the whole family except a kid died in the incident. There weren't any bodies left. The whole house just vanished, disintegrated. It decayed. The only survivor was a boy named Tenko Shimura. All Might just stared down. Dread appeared on his face. He didn't know how to process anything. He just kept running scenarios in his head, reevaluating how to handle everything, now that he knew who Tomura Shigaraki really was. The thoughts of his master invaded his mind, shifting to the boy as he re-examined how he saw and perceived the villain. That was likely his quirk manifesting, Aizawa noted. Still, I'm impressed. Your detective skills leave nothing to be desired. Well, I was trained by the world's greatest detective after all. It's only natural I'd pick up a thing or two, Dick responded, gloating a bit, but being proud of his own accomplishments. He wasn't always the best at the whole detective thing, but thanks to some help, he managed to piece everything together. That's an important discovery, Richard. Is there anything else you may have discovered about our attackers? Nezu asked, having a slight feeling that Nightwing was holding back for some reason. Nightwing's gaze shifted, from the principal to Aizawa, then to the police officer. He knew what resentment towards a hero could do to a man, and he didn't want to do that to anyone. All he wanted to do was help. What you've given us so far is really going to help with our investigation, but if you have more to share, it'll likely be a huge help, Tsukauchi commented, catching the hero's gaze. Okay then. As I mentioned, I got multiple DNA samples from just 3 people. That was only thanks to my Eskrima sticks. They have been outfitted to sample DNA on contact, send me a digital copy of the skin cells and blood if possible. That way I can always identify mass criminals after the fact. The other samples belong to only 2 people, the giant man they called Nomu, and the Warpgate villain Kurogiri. The big muscly villain had about 5 DNA samples. The most prominent one was a no-name thug. The rest seemed to just be random thugs as well. As those DNA samples appear in smaller quantities, I'd guess they are just enhancements to the main body. That is, of course, under the assumption that we're looking at illegal human experimentation and fusion. As for Kurogiri, I just want you all to be prepared. The main DNA sample and body belong to a dead hero of this school, Oboro Shirakumo. Nightwing continued explaining, pausing at the soft mention of the hero's name. He was only 1 class below the hero when he himself attended UA, so he had gotten glimpses of him and knew of him, but nothing too personal. After hearing the implication, Aizawa slammed the table. He couldn't believe his high school friend who had given his life as a hero was being accused of this. Shirakumo did nothing wrong. He was a hero, through and through. He would never have joined the villains. The simple implication outraged him. He glared at Nightwing, reflexively activating his quirk. How dare you state that Shirakumo is behind this? Aizawa shouted, tears starting to slip down his face. I'm sorry to say it. I know how you must feel, but the samples found match. The quirk has likely been muted, but the DNA sample still matches Shirakumo's, Nightwing explained, in a sad and soft tone. He knew how upsetting such a revelation can be, especially after what happened with Jason. He didn't want to anger Aizawa too much. Shirakumo died a hero. You can't possibly expect us to believe that he's part of the League of Villains, Midnight commented. She knew the pain Aizawa was feeling. Although she didn't know him as well as Aizawa, she had met Shirakumo a couple of times. She watched silently as Aizawa slumped back in his chair with tears flowing down his face. There have been fake-out deaths before. My brother, Jason Todd, was also thought dead for a while, but he was just kidnapped, Nightwing pointed out, thinking back to his own life experiences. It's likely that this is a similar situation. Well, thank you very much for your diligent work, Tsukauchi said while taking down notes on a notepad. We'll launch a full investigation into this immediately. If you were to send over a copy of the information, that'd be a big help. I'll send over a copy as soon as I have a minute, Nightwing responded. Having the information he'd need, Tsukauchi left the discussion, heading back to his office, where he planned on getting the investigation started. The conversation in the room changed as soon as he left from the incident to what to do moving forward. The staff started discussing what to do about security and how they should handle the sports festival and other such events moving forward. Once the meeting ended, all parties involved prepared to head home for the day. Nightwing stopped All Might before he could leave. He knew what was likely going through his head. He had a lot of experience with different heroes. He knew not to stop him, but he still advised All Might to reflect on the situation before acting, maybe even talking to Gran Torino about it and asking him for advice. The next day of school quickly arrived, and the time to rest for the students of UA ended. The students of Class 1A sat in their classroom talking about being on the news while waiting for the class to start. So where were you during the whole attack? John asked while turning to face Damian. There was some curiosity to the question, but it mainly originated out of wanting to fill time. Mountain Zone. With a zappy and earphone girl, Damian answered, quickly and concisely. It's not the tight spot you found yourself in, but we managed to survive without needing help. Well, obviously you survived, or else you wouldn't be in front of me, John retorted, not really giving in to his friend's taunt. Moments later, the classroom door opened. Expecting Aizawa to come in, everyone stiffened up and quieted down. The one who came in the door wasn't Aizawa, but Nightwing instead. "Hey everyone," he greeted while entering the classroom. He closed the door behind him and walked to the podium, ready to teach the class. Asu raised her hand and, after waiting for confirmation, asked for a question. Excuse me, where's Mr. Aizawa?" "Ribbit. He didn't sustain that bad of injuries during the USJ, did he?" "Nah, he's fine. He's just dealing with some personal issues. Kinda surprised me since this is the first day he's taken off since he started teaching, but he has a lot of sick days accumulated, so I guess it's fine," Nightwing explained. "Since he's taking the day off, I'll be acting as the substitute. And the first order of business is something very important. The UA Sports Festival is gonna start soon." The class got very excited at the idea of the sports festival. They all knew how big a deal it is for new heroes. Well, not all of them. "What's so important about the sports festival?" John asked. He hadn't really seen one until its completion. He was usually busy doing other things. He had some parts, but that didn't give him a full idea. "It's the place to show your worth as a hero. You tend to get offers from agencies that want to recruit you. It always depends on the worth you show, but it's also a double-edged sword, as showing off too much will result in enemies knowing your power set and fighting style," Damian explained while going over all the facts in his head. He knew very well how public knowledge could hinder and even hurt people. He had been told of the effect that the sports festival can have at the provisional licensing exam. "Oh yeah, I think I've seen it on TV once or twice, but I usually didn't pay that much attention to it," John commented, thinking back. "Is it really wise for us to hold a sports festival so soon after the villain snuck inside?" Jiro asked, concerned about her safety and those of her classmates. "What's stopping the villains from attacking again once we're all in one place?" Ojiro asked, adding to Jiro's question. "Their leader did get out without getting hurt," Maya added. "Good points all around. Nothing's stopping them from attacking again, but the school will increase security for the event significantly. If the villains do decide to attack, we'll have them caught before you can say League of Villains. The school wants to show that the situation has been handled properly, while the police and other heroes look into the situation further. This event is very important for the school, and it's a time to get noticed by other agencies and heroes. It's very impactful for your future, so it can't be cancelled so easily," Nightwing informed, remembering his own experience in the festival about 15 years prior. He got a bunch of offers, although he didn't really need them since he had the world's greatest detective training him. Nightwing finished the explanation, encouraging the students to train and do their best. Classes then resumed like they would normally. At the end of the day, when the students tried to leave, they found their door obstructed by students from other classes. One in particular, a tired-looking boy with purple hair, stepped out of the crowd of students and declared war on the class. He warned the students to be careful and do their best, because if they didn't, their spot would end up going to him. Over the next 2 weeks, the students of Class 1A trained almost non-stop. They were practicing for the sports festival after all. John trained with his father on the weekends, while during the weekdays he trained to push past his limits, like Wally and others. They were all pushing their bodies to their limit to try and improve and get better. Damian, along with Megan and Maya, on the other hand, spent the time refining their techniques and strategies. Damian in particular prepared mentally for any obstacle that could stand in his way. He knew exactly what he was getting into and preparing accordingly. Before long, the day of the sports festival arrived. In the Kent household, John got ready to leave for school. "Okay, I'm leaving now," he announced while putting on his shoes. "Good luck, John. I'll see you there, okay?" Lois asked. "Sure, see you there," John responded before leaving the house. "I thought you traded to be able to cover the sports festival to spend more time with him. Why not go with him to school? Share the ride?" Clark asked, arriving from a long day at work. "Oh, Smallville. Do you know anything about kids?" Lois asked. She may not have been the best with them, but her instincts were always correct. He needs his independence. I'll have lunch with him or accompany him on the ride back or something. Plus, I have to stop by the office to meet up with a couple people first. After taking a train ride, John arrived at school. He immediately made his way to the changing room, where he changed into his UA sports uniform, going to the waiting room after. There, he found some students chatting while others were trying to calm their nerves. He looked around the room and spotted Megan, so he sat next to her and talked with her while waiting for the festival to start. After a couple minutes, Todoroki approached Midoriya and said, "Midoriya, from an objective standpoint, I think it's fairly clear that I'm stronger than you. However, you've got All Might on your corner, helping you out. I'm not here to pry about what's going on between you two, but know that I will beat you." He then turned to the others. "John, Damian, Bakugo, the same goes for all of you too," he continued. Midoriya retorts the declaration, informing Todoroki that everyone present will be aiming for the top as well, saying it won't be so easy to beat everyone as you may think. After a couple minutes of waiting, the different classes are called into the stadium by President Mike. After all of them show up, the chief umpire is revealed to be Midnight, with John being the one called up to the mic to give the student pledge. He was a bit nervous about having to address so many people, but knew that as the one with the highest hero course score, it's his duty. Hello?" he said, the mic glitching out slightly and letting out a high-pitched tone. Once the error corrected itself, he continued. "I want to thank all of you for being here, and want to wish everyone good luck in the coming festival. I'm not exactly sure what to say, so I'll say something my father once told me. I hope it'll inspire everyone here to do their best. If you give people an ideal to strive towards, they will race behind you. They will stumble, they will fail, but in time, they will join you. In time, you will help them accomplish wonders. That's what we are here for, to learn to strive for those ideals and to be that inspiration to others. So let's all do our best." Once he finished his speech, the audience started clapping, inspired by what he said. Even some students from other classes were doing the same. His speech had kind of worked to change their perception of Class 1A. Zero bumped Kaminari on the shoulder and whispered, "Can you imagine if Bakugo had given that speech?" Both of them laughed at the idea, imagining likely scenarios. "With those great words, let's get this thing started, shall we?" said Midnight. "This is where you begin to feel the pain. The first fateful game of the festival." The screen behind her started racing through a bunch of options, eventually landing on Obstacle Race. Once the game was revealed, Midnight proceeded to explain the details of it. Everyone got into positions. 3, 2, 1, go! Midnight shouted, giving start to the festival. And that's the end of the video. I do hope you all enjoyed, as always. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and you can always check out the Discord in the description below. This series is probably not as popular because it's not Midoriya having X power, but still a cool series to work on, and it's important for my plans, since when I formulated my plans, I was like, this one thing is going to happen at the end of this series to set up this, to set up that, to set up that. So it's an important part of the domino puzzle that I'm trying to set up, but it's not the most important thing ever. So if you don't want to, you don't have. I'm not going to make anyone watch it. Still, I hope you all enjoy. Sorry that this one didn't actually include the sports festival, but I do think getting the conversation with the teachers was very important, so it was important to keep, especially on the context and the edits that happen in this universe. I'm not totally sure of everything that the ramification will have. I originally actually included the first obstacle in this episode, which you can see if you want in the description. Well, in the Discord, there will be the episode 4B, in case you want to watch it, because I have rewritten and re-recorded this video as a result, because I wasn't happy with it. It just enhanced a couple things, made things a bit better, and it ended up making as many words as the original script, but without including the race. So I thought, hey, I'm just going to push the race to the next episode and then do the whole sports festival together. Hope you all are enjoying this series, are staying safe, and are having a great time. And until next time, everyone, have an absolutely fantastic day. Bye!